I believe Mayor's upstairs. He went up there with Kelly a minute ago.
You went through that room with Jay Ship too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that goes upstairs. Yeah, I'm sorry. So they should be together coming out with the chief and then
Perfect.
Thank you.
We'll get going in one moment here, just a brief moment.
You can hear them literally walking down the stairs right now.
Old building. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zach Eaton. I'm the Sergeant of the Public Information Office for Sac PD. Today, Chief Lester is going to be providing a brief statement, prepared statement. She's going to be joined by Mayor Darrell Steinberg and elected officials as well as community leaders from the city. Will be available. The PIO's office will be available for questions after. The chief is going to be giving a brief statement, like I said. And with that, I would like to invite her up to the stage when she makes in, and she'll be giving a brief statement.
All right. Everyone good? All right. Well, first of all, let me just start by saying how truly sad I am for the families whose lives have been changed really forever, and some have been completely devastated today. We have families whose loved ones have been hurt, and we also have families who have loved ones that are just simply not coming home today. The scale of violence that just happened in our city is unprecedented during my 27 years here at the Sacramento Police Department. We are shocked and heartbroken by this tragedy, but we are also resolved as an agency to find those responsible and to secure justice for the victims and their families. We are committing a great deal of resources to this crime, and we are thankful to our regional and our community partners, many of whom are here with us today, who have reached out to help us. I would also like to thank the governor and his office who has offered to assist us. Here's what I can share with you at the early stage of this investigation. Around 2 a.m. this morning, officers heard gunshots near 10th Street and K Street and saw people running. They were on scene almost immediately, and there they encountered a large crowd and multiple gunshot victims. Officers began to give medical aid, including CPR, to the victims that they found, and at the same time worked to stabilize the scene and learn what they could about the crime. Our officers were assisted by members of the California Highway Patrol and the Sacramento Fire Department, and all of our agencies tried to save lives. What we now know is that 18 people were hit by gunfire. 6 have died. They were all adults. There were 3 men and 3 women. While the official notification to the victims' family working at the coroner to make this happen as quickly as possible. Others were also shot, and they are being area hospitals. Process. Jeopardize act. That solve of gun will require community safety shared responsibility. And with that, our mayor, Darrell Stein.
Thank you very much. In addition to what will be said in the, I hope that our colleagues, officials, Vice Mayor Ash, Councilmember Shania, but beyond that, the business leaders are the downtown, community leaders, the community-based organization. Enough is enough. I want to thank the governor, as well as his chief of staff. I want to thank first responders, the police and fire, on the scene in the middle of the night. As always, risking their own lives. I have every confidence. Women of the mind who was responsible for this an unacceptable murder, and they are going to arrest them, and that we will bring them to justice. For that must be part, and a big part, of our community's response. But it is much more than that. The chief alluded to the unacceptable increase in gun violence. I want to remind that. The chief alluded to the unacceptable increase in gun violence. I want to remind all of you of a day not so long ago, pre-COVID, when the city went 2 years without a single homicide involving Sacramento's youth. 2 years. And now we are living in a different era. And it's not to blame what's occurring in this spike on COVID or anything else. We must all take stock and ask ourselves, what can we do different? What can we do better to not ensure this will never happen again, because that's impossible, but to do everything we can to minimize the chance that we will stand here like this on a Sunday afternoon, mourning the deaths of innocent people and mourning their families. Well, here are a couple of quick thoughts. As we have changed the trajectory of our city to invest more in young people and more in gang intervention and more in youth violence, we need to continue to do so and, in fact, elevate those investments. The summer is coming. The summer is coming. And we now have an opportunity to do everything we can to build on what we're already doing to help save lives. And then there is the issue of guns, and of course this is not a Sacramento issue. It's a national issue. No surprise that any city would be hit with this kind of terrible event. But here is what I know. It is beyond time to have a sane conversation about guns in America. We have a sickness. It's a sickness in our country. It's a sickness in our culture. Can't we agree that on one side of the line, firearms for hunting, for sport, even for self-defense is okay? And on the other hand, ghost guns, these guns that can be remade by parts that allow the firing of multiple rounds at a time, are absolutely unacceptable in our community and in our country? That's what has to happen here, and this sickness will be cured someday in this country, or we will destroy ourselves in this country, as we do in too many communities, on too many occasions, over too many years. We mourn the victims. We grieve for their families, but as I said this morning, thoughts and prayers are not enough. It's not enough. That's too easy. And it will be too easy to mourn for a week and then move on. We can't do that. In our city, we will take stock, and we will do everything we can on the investment side, on the public safety side, on the gun side, to protect the public. And finally, I know Michael Ald and others are here from the downtown. I want to repeat what I said this morning. I understand the apprehension of people who look at this and say, oh my God, is the downtown safe? Well, guess what? 3 major concerts this week. Incredible amount of happiness and celebration. The food scene is booming. It takes forever to get a reservation, eat at a downtown restaurant. Let us not forget that this is a downtown and a central city that we want to continue to build and to grow. We're just getting back our legs and our momentum. And I want to encourage people to come down. Come down, for a game. Come down for a concert. Come down to eat. Don't stay out till 2 in the morning. But come on down. We will stand with each other. We'll protect each other. And we will stand with our chief here as she and the department goes all out to make sure that the perpetrators are brought to justice. Councilmember Katie Valenzuela, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. As I mentioned this morning, we are heartbroken, but we are strong. And Sacramento will get past this, and we will figure out a path forward, and that is in no small part due to the heroic actions of our first responders, as the chief and mayor said, who ran towards the gunfire to help people, to try to save lives, to respond to this crisis, who are out there now and have been out there all night searching for evidence to bring the perpetrators of this horrendous crime to justice. But I also do have to recognize these community leaders behind me, a lot of whom don't get paid to do this. Because when I got the call at 2:30 in the morning, the next call I had was actually with Barry Asius from Voice of the Youth to figure out what was going on and how they could help. The 2:30 in the morning, he got out of his bed and drove down, and a lot of the folks standing behind me got out of their beds and they drove down to see how they could help the police, how they could help the community. And we can't do what we're doing today without them and their relationships and their expertise. So we are heartbroken. I said this morning that I've been in office for less than 16 months. This is by far not the first call I've gotten like this. I hope it's the last. I hope we can learn from this and take this seriously. I hope we can take our advocacy, as the mayor said, I will go wherever I need to, if it's to DC, if it's to the state capitol, whatever we need to do to not just get the resources we need to prevent these crises from happening and negatively impacting so many communities. As shocked as we are by the scale of this incident in downtown, we can't forget North and South Sacramento. We can't forget what's been happening there for years and years. We have a lot of work to do as a city to ensure we're addressing violence at its root. And that means addressing the social and economic conditions that are leading to these crises occurring in the first place. So we are ready for the long haul. We are ready for whatever this takes. And I'm just so proud of our city team, and I'm so proud of the community standing behind me here for how we responded to this crisis. And we will not stop until we see justice, but we will not stop then either. Because justice means that this doesn't happen again, and that we don't have another horrible tragedy on our streets, and that we're able to go out and just enjoy the restaurants and do the fun things that our city has to offer. So, thank you, and I believe I'm turning it back over to the chief for any questions. Oh, no, sorry.
Councilmember Valenzuela are going to take a few questions. Please answer or ask your questions and with that, please one at a time. I know everybody has a lot of questions, so with that, I'll take the question first.
This is for Chief Lester. You mentioned that a police camera downtown caught moments of the gunfire. Can you elaborate on any potential suspects or suspects?
We don't have that information to share right now, but like I said, that we are in the preliminary stages of this investigation, and our PIOs will certainly be available as that information becomes available, and we will share it.
And then just a quick follow-up question. Our reporter in the field says victims' bodies are still on the ground downtown. Is there a reason for that? It's almost 12 hours later.
This is a really complex and complicated scene, and there is a process, and what we want to do is make sure that this investigation is completed thoroughly and accurately, because we do want to see the perpetrators of this crime brought to justice.
Chief, you mentioned multiple shooters. Is it safe to say they were all part of the same sort of party, or are we talking about different groups that all had handguns, had their own conflicts, or whatever it was that they were getting into? And also, in the downtown area, does that mean that there's multiple scenes that are being processed where shootings occurred?
You can see that it's a very large scene downtown. We have multiple blocks that are actually blocked off right now while we do the investigation. But I don't have the information that you're asking as far as the suspects, but I do expect to have more information in the coming days, and we will share that.
Chief,
Chief, there's been a lot of talks of, we're talking about the youth, and then we're also talking about ghost guns. Have we confirmed assault rifles? Have we confirmed that these suspected shooters were youth?
No, we haven't confirmed any of that information at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm going to be available to answer a lot of your guys' questions. With that, we're going to conclude the Chief Lester's part of the press conference. But from here on, I'll be able to take your questions. And I'm sure the nice people up here will also be willing to answer your questions.
For Mayor Steinberg or for Mr. Alt, you mentioned King's Games, restaurants, downtown's going to continue. Is that a sign that gun violence like this is becoming more normal in Sacramento?
We can never accept it as normal, and we never will. But we also have to live our lives and do our very best to assure people that we're doing everything we can. Look, violence is random. Violence is prevalent throughout the entire country now, but it is in fact random. And so we want to urge people to be safe, of course, but we don't want to shut down either, because that would be the wrong response.
You know, the timing of this is obviously frustrating, but keep in mind, I mean, we've invested a tremendous amount in the downtown, and we've seen over the last several months a return to office. People are coming back to work. They're coming back to events and activities. This event, while frustrating, and, you know, our hearts absolutely are with the victims and their families, we've got some incredible momentum that we cannot back away from. We've got to continue to invest in downtown. We would ask the community, please keep coming down. You've heard that. This is an opportunity for us to reopen this city and welcome back that energy that is so successful. Communities are known by their urban centers, and we are not backing away from continuing to lean into this.
Michael, this is Graham Womack.
Hey, Graham.
You and I have talked before. Is there a possibility of putting more lighting on K Street or maybe more cameras? Like, what do you anticipate?
Absolutely. The timing is perfect. So we've worked and partnered with the city in the ARPA funding. We got resources to not only help with more lighting. By the end of this month, you're going to see the implementation of new security that's going to manage not only the JKL corridor. We've got additional lighting in Old Sacramento. We're working with law enforcement on security cameras. A lot of this stuff is challenged a little bit with supply chain, but there's absolutely an investment in the public environment and public safety that in the future really will allow us to have more capacity in that area.
We just put forward $8.1 million from our federal rescue plan dollars for exactly the purpose that Michael just described, to maximize safety, to provide better lighting, to have more outreach workers, to invest more in the ambassadors and the community leaders that are back standing behind me so that we can intervene earlier when there is a fight, so that it doesn't spill out into the kind of thing that brings us here today. And so yes, $8.1 million. It's all in process. Some of it's already out, but it continues in process to elevate the security and significant additional resources for gang intervention and for youth programs. We have these pop-ups, you know, most Friday and Saturday nights throughout the community, and they're great, but they're not enough. They're not enough. We're going to need to go 2-3 levels deeper here.
Mayor, on that
And
note,
yeah.
because I noticed we've got several youth advocates,
Yeah.
community activists in the fair. Do you want to say something about you've taken a stand on asking for more funding for outreach? What does this latest shooting show that's needed in the community?
I believe this is a day of reflection, and I think, and I'm hoping that now that we see that this is an opportunity, but I also want to encourage folks to know that it is safe in Sacramento, but the safety is going to be provided by the outcomes of today. And I feel like the outcomes of today will be that we should see more support, and we're hoping that the support won't come later, but come now. So we've urged our community, we've urged our leadership to see this in a different way. I think we have. But in this moment, in this time, there was nothing that could have been done to stop what was going to end up happening. This was going to end up happening, whether there was community leaders there or even police officers in the site. Because some of these things that are happening are isolated incidents and isolated situations where certain people have issues. And unfortunately, this was a cowardly act where an issue now hurt innocent bystanders.
Who is your name, please?
Barry Axius, BERRY. ACCIUS.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can ask a question, Mayor Steinberg, if I could ask a question about what Barry's speaking about, because Barry has been asking for funding, Mr. Mayor, for youth programs for years, and you've offered that funding. If I could ask the question as the last one, can you offer a commitment today for this in an actionable item for the long term, not just year-over-year funding for youth?
First of all, just several weeks ago, the City Council voted to invest an additional $5.1 million in youth. And so we are not just reacting to the tragedy of tragedies here. While we've got a long way to go We are in real time trying to change the trajectory of this city to expand what we consider to be core city priorities. Public safety is always first, has to be, as is evident here. But public safety, as my colleague Councilmember Chenier has said often and brought forward a resolution, is about more than just men and women in uniform. It's about investing in young people, $5.1 million. Are we going to continue to move that trajectory in that direction when it comes to investing in youth? You better believe it. We have to, and we will. Okay?
More information.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for coming today. The PIOs will be around after this. If you have
You have been listening to breaking news updates. There you heard the mayor and police chief giving us the update that 18 people were hit by gunfire this morning on 10th and K Streets, and that 6 people have died, 3 men, 3 women. We're told that this happened after a pretty big fight downtown today, and that multiple shooters are now on the run, and that they are looking for those suspects. They say they did have a police camera that was able to capture at least some of the violence today. We have multiple crews on the scene following this from every angle. Let's go now to ABC 10's Van 2, who is live downtown tonight. Van, bring us up to speed. What's the latest there?
Well, Chris, after this terrifying night, now the agonizing wait for answers. We are here where family members and even survivors with visible injuries have shown up here at the crime scene, where it's taped off at the corner of 10th and L Street. I want to show you, looking down K Street, you can see evidence markers littering the streets. I did speak to one security guard who was working overnight, and he said he had a vantage point where he was able to count these evidence markers, and he counted 46. So at least 46 shell casings can be found in this immediate area. And if you pan up from those evidence markers, you can also see large windows blown out by that gunfire. A very terrifying scene here as police are processing what they say is a very complicated crime scene. And over here by the police tape, we have seen a small but growing memorial for the victims here. Some church members have left some flowers remembering those victims. Again, we have now learned officially from Sacramento Police that 18 people were shot, and of those, 6 were killed, 3 men and 3 women, all of them adults, and they do believe that there are multiple shooters involved here. The mayor at this press conference calling gun violence in the country a sickness, really, and really vowing that there will be community-wide effort to bring these shooters to justice. Now, again, we spoke to many family members, people awaiting news if their loved ones were involved in this shooting. So you can imagine that agonizing wait where they learned a hail of gunfire really erupted at 2 a.m. on K Street, which you know to be the nightlife corridor in this area. So the crime scene really spans from the end of Doco on 9th Street and all the way to the Crest Theater. So really, some people that I spoke to say they haven't heard from some loved ones for 5 to 6 hours. They're really hoping that they're not among the death count or even those injured. So really a lot of answers that really people want to hear from. And earlier, we just heard the press conference from Sacramento Police, the mayor. Elected officials also held a press conference earlier this afternoon as they were still processing all of this information, this mass shooting, just one of at least 2 in the country last night, sending shockwaves through Sacramento. The mayor denouncing gun violence, not only here in Sacramento, but across the country. And this really has shocked community members and elected officials. I want to bring you a moment where Katie Valenzuela, a council member with Sacramento, the moment she learned that this mass shooting occurred in her district. Take a listen.
At 2:30 this morning, I got the call that no elected official wants to get. And you'll have to excuse me for being emotional because I haven't really slept since. A call that I've gotten too many times in the 15 months that I've been in office, that there had been another incident of gun violence in my district, that more people had been killed. So I'm heartbroken and I'm outraged. I'm outraged. Our community deserves better than this. I know this is a national epidemic. This is not unique to Sacramento, but we can stop it here. We can stop it here.
You can just feel that heart rage and the heartbreak from Councilmember Katie Valenzuela talking about the mass shooting here in downtown Sacramento, this shooting happening in her district. So we are here at 10th and L Street. This is a wide crime scene, Chris, I want to let you know. So I will toss it to other crews in the field. I'll toss it now to Madison Wade, who is just on the other end of this crime scene. Madison.
Yeah, Van, I'm standing on 9th and K Streets. We are just a couple blocks away from the Golden One Center, where now people in 3 hours are going to enjoy a Kings game versus the Golden State Warriors. So again, this is a very busy area as we speak. An investigation continues behind me. It is now in its 13th hour after this horrible tragedy happened just after 2 o'clock this morning. We want to play for you right now some audio that came through on dispatch audio that shows the moments as they're unfolding when those 911 calls started to come in.
133, there's a 242 happening at 12th and K. 10th and J, we need probably about another 5, 10 officers.
3 walking gunshot wound victims. Sutter.
Several 911 calls coming in, and then many people running for their lives as well. So that is Broadcastify audio from the mass shooting that happened again this morning around 2 a.m. in downtown Sacramento. This has been breaking news all day long. We also have video from different people's phones that I want to play for you right now. There's one video in particular that shows the moments a fight was happening, and then people were swarming to this fight. They're taking video of it. We want to play that for you right now. The sheer amount of gunfire in this video, you can just hear how many gunshots went out. Again, we are waiting to hear more from Sacramento Police in terms of possibly an assault rifle used, as you're hearing just rounds and rounds of gunfire erupting. Now, people were running for their lives. I spoke with the man who took that video. He told me that his friend was hit in the back of his area, is more around his rear. He was hit there, and he was on the ground calling for help. An ambulance had to take him to the hospital. His friend actually was given gloves by a first responder. He put those gloves on. He applied pressure to his friend's wound. He also, the man who took that video, was hit by gunfire in his life, and so he was talking to me about how horrible this is, how horrifying to be in the middle of what he was calling what felt like a war. Again, running for his life, making sure he was okay, and his friend now is out of the hospital. He is okay tonight, but of course very shaken up from this traumatic experience that happened just behind me, 1 block away. We do also have drone video from our ABC 10 drone we want to show you right now. This is a vantage point from high above, because as you heard Kathy Lester with Sacramento Police just tell us that the investigation is still ongoing. It is quite possible some victims are still in the area, and so therefore we want to be very respectful by showing the drone video, just how gives you a scope of how large this investigation is, so you can see how many blocks are blocked off. But again, the investigation with Sacramento Police continues into its 13th hour. What we know right now, 6 people are dead, 3 men, 3 women, and 12 people are hospitalized. In total, 18 victims when it comes to this mass shooting. The shooting happened around 2:30 this morning. Those shots rang out in the area of 10th and J Streets, and right now a suspect is not in custody. So Sacramento Police are working tirelessly to make sure that they get someone arrested or the people responsible for this shooting arrested. They have a QR code that is up on our website that if you have any video, you've seen any video, you have any photos or information, you can scan that QR code. That will take you directly to the site to tip, to give Sacramento Police a tip, and that will help them in this investigation. Obviously, that scene that you just saw with the fight happening, so many people had their phones out and then they ran for their lives. So they are asking for any video, any surveillance video to be sent to Sacramento Police right now. So Chris, I will send it back to you, but again, this investigation continues. We're hearing from family members of those victims involved. Again, 3 men, 3 women tragically lost their lives here in the streets of downtown Sacramento.
Our Madison Way reporting live for us tonight. Madison, stand by. We'll check back in shortly. I want to go over to our Alex Bell with former Police Chief Daniel Hahn tonight. He is live in the newsroom to try and talk through this tragedy with us.
Yeah, Chris, that's right. We have Chief Hahn here to give us some perspective really on what happened. And so I first want to show some video because it actually does show what happened last night. Again, this is horrific video. We do want to warn people, but if we could roll on that so Chief Hahn could see it as well. Now, Chief Hahn, we've seen this video circulating all over online, and I do want to ask you, you were the chief back in August when a shooting happened in Old Town. Just about 5 weeks ago, we had a shooting at a church, and then now we're seeing this shooting. I mean, what is your initial first reaction when you see such a horrific video? I mean, you're hearing screams, you're seeing people running, you're hearing rapid gunfire. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's being from Sacramento and living here, it hits really home when you see that in your own city. But we see this every day in some city across our country, the violence, the gun violence, all sorts of violence. And it just shows that there's something lacking in our society that needs to be addressed, that people are more than willing to settle their differences with violence.
And does it alarm you to see these multiple fatality shootings right here in Sacramento? Does that concern you?
Well, all in one incident is very unusual, thankfully. But, you know, every year we lose more than 6 people throughout a period of time in the different neighborhoods, in certain neighborhoods in our community, and it does not get the attention that something like this is getting. But all in one incident, having 6 people murdered and 16 other people shot is very unusual.
And I do want to talk about something that you posted on Twitter earlier today. You said the answer isn't huge law enforcement or zero tolerance. The answer isn't only social services and community organizations. The solutions lay in real collaboration and addressing the immediate safety issues, but more importantly, the root causes of this violence. So I want to ask you, when you say root causes, what do you mean by that?
Well, even for the last couple of years and throughout history, we've had this debate. So in the last couple of years, we've debated, do we increase law enforcement or do we eliminate law enforcement? And those are the extremes that aren't the answer. And so, for example, here in Sacramento, downtown, you'll see, I'm sure, an increased law enforcement presence in the downtown core in the coming days. Those officers come from somewhere else. So you're taking an officer out of another critical duty and putting them down. That's not sustainable. So it has to be addressed to why are people willing to do this? The poverty, the lack of education in certain communities, and the lack of hope in our community among certain communities that make it okay to be violent like this.
Now, do you think this shooting in downtown Sacramento last night, do you think it was targeted? Do you think it was random? Do you think it was gun violence? What's your opinion?
Well, who knows? But I'm guessing somebody did intend at shooting at somebody else. Unfortunately, they're in a large crowd, and obviously there are people that were not involved in the incident that were part of this, as hundreds and hundreds of people were downtown at this time.
Now, we already know this is a large investigation. I mean, we're talking a lot of people in a large area. Where do you start when you see this many people being injured?
Well, you see the frustration on behalf of families trying to get information of whether their loved ones were part of this. I, too, lost my younger brother to gun violence in this community, and I was the one that had to call my mom and tell her and listen to her cry about her youngest son being killed. So I understand that. At the same time, there's officers, as you heard in the press conference, that heard these gunshots. So they're responding to the scene, trying to address the violence that's going on at that time, trying to ensure that the gun shots aren't going off anymore. At the same time, they're observing people, obviously, that were injured, and hundreds of people running probably in all directions in a very chaotic scene. At the same time, eventually they have to transition into preserving evidence, getting witness statements, all the markers you see on the ground, ensuring that that's not disturbed, secure the scene. So it's a very chaotic scene, coordinating with fire, ambulance crews, the hospitals to get people aid. At the same time, having the ability to hold the people that are responsible for this accountable in their day in court.
Now, we've seen a lot of video, circulating on social media, online. How has social media really impacted how you guys handle your investigations now?
Well, it's like most everything, it's good and bad. So it's increased the ability to get information out really quick, but it's also accessible to everybody. So a lot of misinformation gets out really quick that can cause challenges for any investigation, or even people hearing something about their loved ones that either isn't true or that's not the way you want to tell somebody about where their loved one is. So it's both good and bad.
Yeah. And what needs to be done to really solve this? What measures do you think need to be taken, and how quickly do you think something like this is going to get solved, this incident?
Well, I think throughout history, anytime you see an increase in not just gun violence, but violence in general, an increase in gang activity, increase even in hate crime or hate group membership, that means there's something lacking in society. So people join gangs because they're missing something. They want to feel part of something. They want a family. They want to be appreciated, all those sort of things. They want something to care about. Same thing with hate groups. And so as we see this increase in crime over the last couple of years, increase in hate crime, increase in hate membership and violent crime in our city, it's another sign that we need to concentrate on things like poverty and hope in all of our communities, not just in a select few.
And then two more questions for you here. Are shortages in the police force going to make it harder for them to do their jobs when it comes to this investigation?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime something like this happens, people are going to want to have a bigger presence in downtown. The businesses are, people are going to be thinking about this incident when they are considering to go downtown for dinner or for a concert. And so as a city, we want people to feel comfortable, not only downtown, but in all our neighborhoods. But when we move those resources there, they're coming from somewhere else. And so somewhere else is going to be short of those resources. And the police department is smaller now than it was 12 years ago. And so it just becomes a bigger challenge.
And last question here, for people that maybe do have information, but they're just scared to speak out, what do you say to those people that have real information that could help investigators with this incident?
And that is a legit challenge. And people are fearful, and rightfully so. And so they can always call Crime Alert and truly remain anonymous. A lot of times people have relationships with people in the police department or other community groups. They can remain anonymous and call those. The important thing is to get the information, whatever information they might have. As insignificant as they might think it is, it might be the last piece that helps the police officers and the detectives solve the crime. So I would say you can remain anonymous, truly anonymous, but getting that information to the appropriate people is important.
All right, Chief Hahn, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and for you being here. And again, a horrific incident. Now we want to turn things over to Giacomo Luca. He is at the press conference with more information.
Well, that's right, Alex. That press conference just wrapped up. We heard from a number of people, and there was quite a few people actually at the podium just behind me. That includes Mayor Steinberg, as well as members of City Council, as well as a number of community activists and advocates in our community that have been very active in terms of responding to incidents of violence here, such as Barry Axius with Voice of the Youth. Now, we want to get back to what Kathy Lester said. She's the the chief of police here, the recently new chief of police here who took over for Daniel Hahn, who you just had heard from. Kathy came out. She spoke to quite a large press pool. So many people have their eyes on Sacramento now watching this. She told us a couple of things. The victims that were killed, 3 men, 3 women, all adults. We also learned that the 12 people sitting in the hospital right now that were also injured in this, they were all shot. We're getting that new information from the department on that. We also learned that the police department also has some police video that actually captured images of the shooting on camera. We asked the question of whether or not they actually captured the shooters on camera, and the chief did say there are shooters involved. We just don't know exactly how many or who they are. We're still working to get that information to you. The police department's also working to get that information to us so then we can provide it. Then after the chief spoke, she really didn't take many questions, just 2 or 3, and essentially kind of moved on. Not a lot of details really coming out from the actual incident or event itself. People with the department, the public information officer essentially explained that this is such a developing situation. They said that the crime scene itself is likely going to take a couple days to process, something that, as you can imagine, will have a major impact to the downtown area. We're still learning and still waiting to get more information on exactly how long that's going to take. Now let's move on to who else was speaking at that press conference. Then Mayor Steinberg spoke up. He reiterated some calls that he had early this morning after standing in Bishop Gallegos Square, right a block from where that incident happened earlier today, essentially reiterating that he is calling gun violence in America and in our city a sickness, something that we both have to deal with, and something that is certainly something that will have to be addressed in the city of Sacramento, which has had a number of serious incidents, including one just last year, another mass shooting in Old Sacramento, as well as a serious domestic violence incident that was also a mass shooting at a church just within the past month. So the city is dealing with some intense situations of gun violence, and the mayor and members of council say they want to address that. Then we also had Katie Valenzuela, who's the council member that represents the district which encompasses K Street as well as the downtown area where so many of those violent incidents have happened. I believe from the count that I have, just tallying from the past year or so, there has been more than 20 people shot in the downtown area. Not everyone killed, but more than 20 people in the past year, which is a significant number here in the city of Sacramento. She spoke up saying that it's a big issue and something that the city wants and needs to address. And then finally, we had some information coming out from Barry Axius, who's a member of the Voice of Youth, which is an organization that tries to help youth leaders in the area. And he essentially said more support is needed for the youth. And that's what really came out of that press conference today. That's the information we have right now. Of course, we are waiting very patiently as officials slowly but surely send that new information to us. We'll send it back to you.
Our Giacomo Luca reporting live for us. Giacomo, we thank you. We have crews all across the region covering this breaking news. Again, here's what we know so far. It happened around 10th Street and K Street today. 18 people hit by gunfire. 6 people have sadly lost their lives. 3 people are men. 3 of them are women. There are multiple shooters that police are now searching for. Keep in mind, it started around 2 a.m. this morning, just as bars were starting to close in downtown Sacramento. Several people caught video of the chaos on their phones, and understand that this is breaking news. We understand it is difficult to see, but we have used some of those videos and images captured by Google. And ABC 10 investigative reporter Brandon Riddiman is now able to reconstruct some of the scene.
This all happened right around the corner from the state capitol, which is behind these palm trees that you see right there. And we know this location because several people already had their phones out recording due to a bit of pushing and shoving that was going on here by this barroom patio that you see up here. On the sidewalk, we see pushing, some people end up in the street, and then this. So let's play that again for you. I want you to listen to that first bit of gunfire and then to the sound right after it. That rattling sound you hear as the white car drives off in that video, we believe could potentially be automatic gunfire, but we haven't been able to confirm whether it is at this point. We can confirm the location, however, because people captured this sign as well as the railroad crossing sign as they were running for safety towards this alleyway. We do hear that some of the gunfire is coming from the direction of K Street. It went on for 30 or 40 more seconds, and we hear dozens of rounds fired in that time. We counted at least 33, not counting that potential automatic gunfire. And at the end of it, there is cell phone video from outside of this Sharif Jewelers that shows bodies in the street. We're not sure whether all of the victims in this shooting ended up in this location, but we do know that some of them were there. We're still obviously just in the beginning stages of trying to piece together everything that happened here. So is law enforcement. If you have any video from the scene that you'd like us to take a look at, please download the ABC 10 app. You can upload it by clicking on Near Me.
Investigative reporter Brandon Ritterman working to give us a better idea of how everything unfolded. Now, the nightclub outside where that brawl unfolded put out a statement. London Nightclub had this to say: "We at London Sacramento are praying for the families of victims that were impacted by the incident that occurred near 10th and K Street. As we continue to process this horrific act, we would like to emphasize that each night, London Sacramento enforces strict security protocols and begins closing procedures at 1:30 a.m. While this incident occurred a block away, we will continue to make ourselves available to the Sacramento Police Department and provide any information we can during their investigation. Our prayers are with the affected families, and we continue to grieve with the Sacramento community." Now, pop duo Ali and AJ, who performed at the Crest Theater last night, tweeted a statement about the downtown Sacramento shooting as well. They tweeted, "Distraught by the mass shooting last night outside the venue in Sacramento. All of our thoughts are with the families of those who lost their lives and those recovering today. We are praying for the healthcare workers caring for them. We hope all our fans made it home safe."
I'm Madison Wade, standing at 9th and K Streets right now in downtown Sacramento, just a block away from where this investigation continues tonight. And we have some video from above, from the ABC 10 drone. This was taken around 9 this morning, just several hours after the gunfire erupted and the 6 people tragically lost their lives, many sent to the hospital. You're taking a look at that video from above, showing the scope of this investigation, how many blocks are blocked off at this time that still continue to be blocked off. And this drone video just goes to show the scope of the investigation and, again, what Sacramento police are looking at, the evidence markers you can see. We also had to be respectful because several victims were still on scene at this time. We are learning more tonight about several of those victims. We do know, again, 3 men, 3 women. Our Ananda Rochita has more about several of those victims that we've talked to their family members. Let's go to her now.
And Madison, so far we know the identities of 2 people who were killed in this shooting. Some of their family members stopped by the area where it happened early this morning. Tavazier Turner was 29 years old. He lived in Vacaville but is from Sacramento. He was a father. Sergio Harris was a father and a husband. He was 38 years old. Earlier today, we spoke with his family. His wife, Leticia, said she had to go to work all day on Saturday, and Sergio spent his last day alive with his kid during the day. They went to the mall and a park.
He loved his kids. He was a happy person. That's for sure. He just loved living life and trying to make a difference, making a mark on himself, being better.
Sergio had 3 children. We are still trying to learn more about the other victims from this shooting. We will continue to keep you updated as we get more information. Madison.
Ananda, thank you. And again, I met up with So sorry, I'm hearing something from our producer. I just wanted to double check we're on the right track here when it comes to our breaking news and what we're covering out here. I spoke with Turner's father initially when I got on scene here. I can tell you he was standing only a block away or so down from where I am. He had a security guard jacket on, and so I thought maybe he was here last night. And I walked up and asked him, "Sir, were you here last night?" And he told me his son was killed. Of course, I was so sorry. We got some more information about his son and, telling me he's 29 years old. He just loved to be with friends. He was just having a good time. And for this to happen, just heartbreaking. His father drove from the Bay Area out here. We also have been talking to people who were on scene when this happened, some witnesses who heard the gunfire and saw cars driving in all different directions. Here's what they told us earlier this morning.
Well, K Street is the center of the entertainment district here in Sacramento. It's an area packed with restaurants and bars leading up to the Golden One Center, many of them on edge following the senseless act of violence. I spoke to an employee at Koja Kitchen, a Korean-Japanese restaurant just down the street from where the shooting took place. She was still at the restaurant around 2 this morning when she heard several gunshots. She described the commotion that followed. Take a listen.
You just see a bunch of people flood this way, and people were saying there's like a shooting, people were coming into our job, they were holding the door, making sure that like nobody related to the shooting was like coming this way and stuff. And everybody was just like kind of in chaos for a good 20 minutes trying to figure out what was going on. And as soon as things happen, you kind of just see officers like flee to the scene. Really sad, like it's super sad that we have to see like the community kind of go through this, and somewhere it's supposed to be fun and like have a good time and go home at the end of the night. It's just really sad to know that some people didn't make it home.
Tonight at 5, we'll hear from more witnesses and speak to the president of Broadway Sacramento about the ongoing efforts to revitalize K Street and how this tragedy could be a major setback.
Take a look. Governor Gavin Newsom released a statement just hours ago on the mass shooting. He said, "Jennifer and I send our heartfelt condolences to the family, friends, and to the wider community impacted by this terrible tragedy." Sacramento District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert releasing this statement saying this is a shocking tragedy in our community. We are in contact with Sacramento Police and monitoring the investigation closely. We will aggressively prosecute those responsible for these horrific crimes. Again, we have crews across the region with live team coverage covering this mass shooting. ABC 10's Van 2 is live at 10th and I Street tonight. Van, what are you learning?
Well, Chris, just a quick correction. I'm at L Street here, so maybe you saw that differently. But this is 10th and L, where we can see down where the evidence markers are here on the street, where that hail of rapid gunfire erupted around 2 a.m. this morning off of K Street, the Nightlife corridor here, just steps away from the state capitol. A security guard tells me that he was able to count from his vantage point 46 evidence markers. So each one of those marking a shell casing of some sort. So an upwards of 46 gunfire bullets were shot here last night, leaving 6 dead and 12 injured. Now, I want to show you here that there is a small but growing memorial here at 10th and L Street right now. And I do want to note the Sacramento community coming together, really a show of support. So tonight at 7 p.m., there will also be a vigil for the victims in this mass shooting, as well as their families. So we will be planning on attending that vigil and bringing that to you. As we continue to follow this case. And I do want to now toss to Monica with an update on how this is impacting traffic in this downtown corridor of Sacramento.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Yeah, we can see so much crime tape around the area, and this is starting to become a very busy time, especially with the Kings game for tonight. Here's the overall view. Nothing too impactful on our major interstates, but as you look at the Capitol right in the center of our screen there, I just blocked off where we still have that perimeter set up. All those streets, it's going to be 9th to 13th Street from the west to the east, and then on the north and south, you've got J Street at the top L on the bottom, and that's going to be that main area. Now, a couple of different landmarks there. Cesar Chavez Park is going to be on the northwest corner of that block-off area, and then the convention center is just off to the west. So those areas are still accessible. However, a lot of police presence obviously is going to make certainly 15th and 16th Streets super busy streets, especially on a day like today, as well as just off to the west as you head just off to the west of 9th Street. That's when we start to get more of the Kings, the Golden One traffic starting to go. But again, anywhere around I-5, Highway 50, we're looking pretty good right now. So that is a look at our traffic situation. Again, the streets that are blocked off, just a little closer view. J to 13th on the south side, it's going to be L Street, and then on the west side, it's going to be 9th Street there.
Again, 6 people sadly have lost their lives. 12 people are now in the hospital. This shooting happened around 2:30 this morning. Shots rang out in the area of 10th and J Street. We just learned from a news conference with the Sacramento Police Chief that there are indeed multiple shooters. We are told that a police camera was actually able to track some of the violence that happened downtown. Of course, police are now going through videos that have been sent in, cell phone videos and things of that nature. But again, multiple shooters still on the run tonight after a mass shooting in downtown Sacramento. 3 men and 3 women are now dead. This is a breaking news story that we will be following throughout the evening on air and online at abc10.com. We thank you so very much for joining us. Our Madison Wade and so many of our crews are live following the latest developments. We'll bring it to you then as soon as we learn it. We thank you so much for joining us. We are going to go back to scheduled programming, and we'll be right back here on air as soon as things merit. Good night.